is a podcast about all things holistic health and self-discovery with me, Ask Elizabeth, counsellor, health advocate and fundraiser. Join me as we get to know these guests and learn about how they implement health, well-being and self-care practices into their lives. Welcome to Unearthing Wellbeing with Ask Elizabeth, where our greatest wealth is health. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 18 of Unearthing Wellbeing. This week I was delighted to have Doctor Dana Cohen on the podcast. She worked alongside Dr. Atkins, who is a pioneer in the field of integrative medicine. Her 20 years of experience in the field has been groundbreaking, and we discussed just some of the amazing things she has seen within her career. We went back to basics and spoke about how hydration is one of the key foundations to living a long and healthy life. Hence, her newly released book, Quench. You will be pleasantly reminded about some obvious ways to improve your holistic health overnight. So without further ado, here is Dr. Cohen. Hi, Dr. Dana. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on to Unearthing Wellbeing, where your greatest wealth is health. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am an internal medicine doctor in private practice in New York City for the past 22 years. And I've been practicing solely what we call functional medicine or holistic medicine. We used to call it complementary medicine, integrative medicine. Basically, it's just good medicine.
I love that.
Meaning we try to keep people off of medications using diet, lifestyle, nutrition, supplements, whatever it takes. But then we'll prescribe a medication when needed. And it just incorporates the best of both worlds, a little more holistic approach, looking for root cause, a whole systems approach. And I love it. I am also the co-author of a book called Quench, which is about the new science behind optimum hydration. And,
congratulations.
Thank you. And that's been a really fun, interesting aspect of my work over the past few years.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And I think a lot of people are getting on that bandwagon of, eating nutritious food and being more conscious about what they're putting into themselves to avoid using pharmaceutical medications when you can avoid it, and seeing the benefits of it. So I think this is all about what the ethos is of Unearthing Wellbeing. So yeah, I'm really excited to chat about this all.
Yeah, I think I often, what I've noticed over the past year with COVID and lockdown is that I think people are coming out of the woodworks, really understanding that COVID is a disease of lifestyle, meaning those with the worst lifestyles and the most unhealthiest are the ones that are getting really harmed and dying, basically. The ones that are being hospitalized, the ones that have comorbidities like diabetes and obesity, and people are seeing that and really for the first time in their lives are saying like, oh my God, I need to treat this. I need to really get on board. And I've seen it we've seen it in supplement sales. Supplement sales have gone through the roofs. People are buying supplements and don't even know what they're taking or why they're taking it, but they think, but they're trying to, and then cooking at home because they're forced into it, but really wanting to eat better and healthier and move at home more so than before COVID. So hopefully that's one of the things that's going to stick.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And I think it's a positive thing that's come out of this whole pandemic, which is, a good thing.
Yeah, Yeah.
So you've told us that you've been working in this industry for 20 years. Before then, how did you come to the realization that you wanted to work in the health and wellness space?
Well, so Uh, I was finishing up residency as a medical doctor. I've always known I wanted to be a doctor from the age of 3. I said it out loud,
Oh,
and I never wavered.
I
I
love
don't know if
that.
but I always knew I was going to be a doctor. And so I was in residency in internal medicine, which is like adult primary care medicine, and the truth is I was kind of miserable. And at that point, I was, $200,000 in debt. And, we have to pay for our medical school here. And I can't turn back. I have to work. And so I'm finishing up residency. I'm looking for a job. And I saw an ad that said a world-renowned wellness center is looking for a doctor. And in my mind, I'm thinking, "Ooh, this is a spa." I was thinking, "Yeah, I want to be a spa doctor." I always worked in hair salons in college and undergrad as a receptionist. Like I loved that environment. It's very creative. It's beauty. It's fun. And so I applied for the job, and it turned out to be for Dr. Atkins of the Atkins diet, and we had the interview. He hired me, and I thank God for him. He changed my life. I was never. I mean, I fought him a lot in the beginning because here I was traditionally trained, and I was like, "What are you doing with these IV vitamin C drips? Treating cancer?" I was like, I didn't know anything, and he really taught me a whole new way of thinking, and I saw miracles on a daily basis. People, for example, like he would sit back. He's like, "Go downstairs and spend the afternoon talking to the patients, getting IV vitamin C." And so I'd go down there, and he had like 20 people lined up getting IV drips, which is now a fad, but he was
Mm,
doing this was 20 years ago. And I'd go downstairs and start speaking to this person who was diagnosed with metastatic colon cancer, given 6 months to live,
oh my
and that was
God.
10 years ago. And over, I kept hearing this story of these people, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's something here,"
Yeah,
and so he changed the way I thought about medicine, and often, not only that, I mean, that's actually a really big thing. I don't actually treat cancer in my practice, but even things such as fatigue and blood sugar, and um, I people would come in just by changing their diet, like skipping in, jumping up and down, saying, "I feel so much better,"
that's
only by
amazing.
changing their diet. So that was my experience, and I was like, "Hello, I'm going to listen to these people." And what a lot of people don't realize either is that the Atkins Center was about 90% holistic medicine and about 10% weight loss.
Mm,
it was not a weight loss center. People would come from all over the world to see him for their diseases that I barely even saw in residency. So it was a great
wow.
great experience. I really truly thank God for him.
Yeah, it sounds like that was the reason for what you're doing today, and that's astounding. Like vitamin C of all things, like who would know? Like, oh my God, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly.
Wow. I'm at a loss for words because,
Yeah.
yeah.
I used to be too. And it was so exciting and so fun, and it's a totally different world than it was from now.
Mm.
Even just like I said, like IV vitamin C. I don't know how it is over there, but here it really is a fad. Like there are these IV vans that in Las Vegas that hydration with vitamin C in it, and all these hangover cures, and it's all over these hydration places that have vitamin drips, and it's a bit of a thing. Um, then it was so not heard of, and it
Mm.
was actually it was scary, like to like, why are we putting vitamins in somebody's veins? And it was a whole different ball game. But now it's so much more accepted and sought after. And it's funny because back then if a patient came in, being the primary care doctor that I was trained to be, I would be like, well, let me call your doctor and just let them know, touch base so I can get a little bit of history from them. So I'd call them and I would basically get hostile doctors on the
Yeah,
other end, like, who are
pushback.
you? What are you doing? Now it's like, oh, what are you doing? Where did you learn that? I want to hear more about that. It's just
Yeah.
it's a completely different world than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, and I was going to say there would have, like, 20 years ago, because we didn't know much about it, there would have been a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I suppose, like, that was one of the things that you've learned from Dr. Atkins. What are other things that other, I guess, people listening would be interested in knowing more about that you do in your practice?
So I basically treat anything an adult medicine doctor would treat. So, blood pressure, cholesterol, um, weight loss. I happen to have a huge percentage of my patients are menopausal, perimenopausal women. So I do a lot of hormones in my practice, bioidentical hormone replacement. I'll do a lot of gut health, but anybody who comes in, even if it's something that I don't necessarily necessarily treat, like for example, multiple sclerosis or something like that, there's always something that we can do to improve upon whatever you're doing. I would never step on another doctor's, like, especially something like that. Whatever your neurologist is doing with you, you know what? We can actually complement what you're doing by changing your diet, looking at specifically blood sugar
Mm.
and maybe even some other things like yeast and gut health and all those things with autoimmune disease. Um, so, I'd have to say, if I had to say the two big things, is definitely gut health, because as a functional medicine doctor, that is always the first place where you look. If somebody's got a bad gut, they're going to be sick, and
Mm.
we have to work on that gut. And then the other is diet and looking at, what are you eating? Where is your nutrition coming from? How much sugar's in your diet? Sugar, it turns out Dr. Atkins was right. Sugar is the enemy.
Yeah.
Yet another thing he was really right about. He was the first ketogenic diet before it became a thing. He was the guy who, that first 2 weeks of Atkins is a ketogenic diet. And now it's everybody knows what that is.
Yeah.
Um, so hormones, thyroid. I do a lot of thyroid in my practice. I try to do. I wish I had more of it, but preventative medicine. I see some young people that are coming in that are just trying to optimize. Um, as a functional medicine doctor, I love testing. I love data. So I do a lot of sort of all kinds of testing, looking at nutrients, looking at vitamin levels, looking at essential fatty acids, amino acids, like all those kind of interesting tests that I love, that I can and love to do.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, sorry, go on.
No, and then I mean, and then the big thing is I love to talk about hydration. Hydration is I say this on every podcast, so I think it's really important to say the single most important thing that you can do to treat and prevent chronic disease is learn how to hydrate properly. Before you go on any diet, before you start taking any supplement regimen, you need to learn about hydration first. It truly lays the groundwork for everything, every function in your body, and barely anybody's doing it right.
Mm. So what is your recommended amount of water consumption per day?
um, okay, so this is always the question. The truth is there is no answer. Everybody is different. We have to live in our bodies. Stand in our own 2 feet and know what that level is for each person as an individual. And there are ways to figure that out. Like let alone symptoms of this low grade dehydration, symptoms like fatigue and headache and constipation and dry skin and all those things that everybody knows about, brain fog, excuse me. Um, but so knowing what those symptoms are, knowing what it feels like to feel terrific and fantastic, and then finding what it is that gets you there, you know, um, and it's not necessarily about drinking more and more water either. It
Mm.
could be about eating your water with lots of vegetables. A lot of what I have to say is common sense, but there's science behind it now. And sometimes I think people just need to keep hearing it until it
Yeah.
becomes a revelation for themselves. I basically had this revelation not too long ago, and it's so simple. But am I allowed to curse on your
You
podcast?
can go for
Okay. All
it.
right. This is what I want to say. I want you to eat the shit out of your vegetables. Like, eat a ton of vegetables. Like, load up on vegetables. Um, I think that it's such a simple thing that nobody follows it. Like, have 3 or 4 veggies every meal. It doesn't have to be one vegetable, and
Mm.
and some meat. Like, really, like, make your meals really plant centric. So you want lots and lots of vegetables, have a little bit of meat, have a little bit of pasta, a little bit of bread. If you're not doing a ketogenic diet, you can't have those things.
Yeah.
But but I think, that it's kind of simple,
Mm.
and and like, you may think that that's so common sense, but the idea of having vegetables breakfast, lunch, and dinner doesn't necessarily think people don't think about that.
Mm.
And force yourself, if you have to, to
Yeah.
have some veggies all the time, and you'll get filled up faster, you'll be healthier. I truly believe that our our plants will cure us.
Yeah.
Everything we need is in our plants and our water and sunlight, and going back to your basics
Mm.
of life.
And I actually read somewhere or watched a video somewhere that when you feel like you're getting sick, start incorporating zucchini into your diet, and that'll help. And I was like, that's interesting.
Zucchini, huh, interesting. I don't
Yeah.
know what the properties of that's not one that I've actually really thought about. I will tell you a great recipe that I make with zucchini.
Yes,
Um,
please.
so, I make stuffed peppers. So, do you
Yum.
make those there? So stuffed
Yeah.
peppers is historically ground beef with rice. So instead of the rice, cut up zucchini, green zucchini, into little cubes, cook those, and then add everything else, and then stuff your pepper with it, and no rice. And it's there's no difference. It's as good, if not better. It holds together, and it's a great way to switch up to add a little vegetable and to get rid of the carbs in your diet.
I love that recipe. Thank you so much. I'll definitely be trying it.
Good. I love it.
And like you've
Yeah.
reinforced how like you can use different things to get hydrated. Um, would you recommend anything specific, like aside from water?
Yeah. Yeah. So, if I had to, like, say the gist of the book, Quench, is, we're trying to get people to drink some green smoothies a day, which is basically blended greens with water, and then whatever else you want to put in there, like apple, lemon, ginger. Make a green smoothie. That is, um, I sometimes get a little eye rolling because it's so, you know, 3 years ago. um, but the truth is there's nothing better that you could do for your body than drink a green smoothie a day. And I go so far as to say that green smoothie is probably as hydrating as 3 times the amount of plain water,
Wow.
so it's just, and you're not only that, you're getting all the nutrients, all the minerals, all the things, the polyphenols, all that stuff that you're getting from whatever you're putting in your smoothie, and very concentrated forms, right?
Yeah.
So that's one way to get water. The book is based on the work of Dr. Gerald Pollack, who is a world-renowned water researcher. He's based out of University of Washington in Seattle, and he has discovered that there's another phase of water. This was mind-blowing to me, by the way. And if this is news, it's not that news anymore. A lot of people really know about this, but this new phase of water, this fourth phase of water, is also known as gel water or structured water. He calls it easy water. So it's interesting because we've only ever thought that water exists as liquid, ice, and vapor. And now we know that there's another phase of water. And it's in that form that is found within our cells, and it's in that form that's found in nature. So you think about, you look at a cucumber, and the seeds on the cucumber are loaded with gel water, or you look at celery and iceberg lettuce and all this. You could see there's that fluid, watermelon even. That's all structured fourth phase of water. So by eating that water, it's much more hydrating. And so eating your water is maybe even, is the most important way that we talk about getting hydration and hydrated. But maybe, maybe even so, going back to how much water should we be drinking, there are some people that only need one glass of water. If they're eating all these fruits and vegetables all day long, they may not need. Now there's some people who need more.
Mm.
Do you know who Tom Brady is?
No, but tell me more about that.
Tom Brady he has won more Super Bowl rings than American football, than any other quarterback in history, and he's still playing. And he just wrote a book on what he does. He's in his 40s. He's incredibly fit. He's still playing, at national football, and he drinks something like 200 ounces a day of water. Now, I'm sure he replaces some of that water. He puts some electrolytes in that water, but not everybody is the world's greatest athlete, and needs all of that. But once again, it is so important for people to stand on their own 2 feet, not being cut off from their heads. Don't ignore your bodies, and live in your bodies, and listen to what your body's telling you.
Yeah.
There's a great sign, or is it a symptom or a sign? I don't really know how I would describe this, but one of the things that I like to tell people is that we are meant, as in our waking hours, to urinate every 2 or 3 hours. And if you're not getting up to urinate every 2 or 3 hours, you're not hydrating enough. So that's a good rule of thumb to sort of keep in the back of your head when you're sitting at your desk for 8 hours straight and haven't gotten up all day to pee.
Yeah,
not a good
exactly.
thing.
And
Right.
they say like the color as well kind of
Mhm.
indicates like how hydrated you are.
Yeah, you want the color to be like a very pale yellow or straw colored. You don't want it to be too concentrated. But I always say also, if you're taking B vitamins, then you can't. Usually your urine is bright, almost fluorescent yellow. So that goes out the window.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And like you've mentioned about how like chronic low grade dehydration and like the symptoms and conditions around that. Can you briefly give us a case study and tell us more?
Yeah, I'll give you a really simple one. So
maybe, sorry. I was going to say maybe start with like what low grade dehydration.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. So we differentiate. People know what overt dehydration is. Like, you've been vomiting all day and your eyes are sunken in your head and you can't think straight and you're going to pass out. You need to go to the hospital and get IV fluid. We know, every doctor knows what that looks like. That's bad. I'm talking about in the book this day in, day out, low grade, subtle dehydration that affects all of us. And actually, there's been some research lately that shows this low grade dehydration puts you at risk for things like metabolic syndrome, which is pre-diabetes, those kind of things. So it really is an issue. The problem is we don't have a good way to measure it. We don't have a simple test that can say, oh, you're low grade dehydrated. It doesn't exist. So we need to feel what it feels like in our bodies and know when you feel fantastic, and be on top of it every day, right? Making sure you're hydrating every single day, every single hour. So I once had, there's a couple case studies in the book. I was just trying to think of a really simple one. I see something like this so often. So a woman who is a yoga instructor, really fit, had some knee pain, and she's had it for years. This nagging, gnawing knee pain. Never saw a doctor for it, and and when I do a history on somebody, I tend to like go through every part of the body. So I pulled it out of her. She's like, "Oh yeah, I have this knee pain. It's been ailing me for years. It's I just live with it. And she never had it worked up. And I was like, all right, well, we'll think about maybe getting an x-ray or something at some point. And after that first visit, I do a history, a physical, then I do all the blood work and testing that I want to do, and I send them home. And for her, I sent her home with my book, and I was like, I want you to hydrate a little bit better. She was a yoga person. She did hot yoga. So I want you to hydrate better. She's like, oh, but I hydrate great. I said, I want you to do a couple things. Maybe add a little electrolytes to your water, have a green smoothie a day, maybe 2 green smoothies I might have given her. I can't remember now. And so she came back to go over her blood work. So we're going through everything, and everything is perfect, pretty normal. Like, she was there for more preventative medicine. She's a pretty healthy girl. And then at the end, I was like, well, how's your knee pain? And she's like, oh my God, I completely forgot about it. I never even she's like, I would have completely forgot to tell you. It just went out of her head. She no longer had knee pain in the past 3 weeks from hydrating. And it happens. And this is the thing with learning how to properly hydrate. It happens quickly. It happens in a day. Like you could do this in one day, So that was a really sort of simple thing. Aches and pains and joint aches and moving literally fluidly. That's what hydration does for you. It takes away all those aches and pains. You're moving better. You're thinking clearer. Your your energy is really good. So I mean, I have good case studies. That was sort of a nothing of a case study, but I remember thinking like, wow, she wouldn't even remember to tell me about it,
Yeah, so. That's pretty cool. Like the fact that what once was a nagging issue in her life had just been forgotten about.
Didn't even dawn on her. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I had to ask her about it because I wrote it in my notes. I was ready to give her a prescription and go get an x-ray. And it's never, and I still see her. It's never ever been an issue again.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you keep referring to this green smoothie. Can you tell us what's in it?
Yeah. So first of all, I mean, smoothies, like there are thousands and thousands of recipes on the internet, but in the book, we define a smoothie as a blended green, right? So it could be spinach, it could be rainbow chard, it could be kale, whatever greens you want, cucumbers, you could use celery, and then mixtures of all of them. Did I say spinach?
Yeah.
Okay. So blended in a blender with water so that obviously you got to put a little water in there, and then whatever else you want to add. A foundational one that I always use is blended greens, water. I like a half a green apple or half an apple with ginger and lemon, and that's it. And you could add. Then from there you could do blueberries, strawberries, any kind of berries. You could play around with some herbs or you can play around with like chia seeds and flax seeds. But we differentiate it from juicing, where juicing is you're pressing vegetables and taking the juice out and no fiber is in there. So a smoothie is a fiber, and both have roles and both are extremely hydrating. I think the fiber, though, is a little more hydrating. It holds on to that moisture better. I really believe that. And that's not based on science. That's based on experience and speaking to people. And, so that's a green smoothie. And you could add protein powders if you wanted to. I don't think it's for hydration. It's not necessary. If you're doing it for some other reasons as a meal replacement, fine, so.
Awesome. I definitely will be trying that. So thank you for the recipe.
Good. And there's a bunch of recipes in the book, by the way.
Yes, which I will be asking you about where to purchase it and everything at the very end. Yes. But I wanted to ask, because you said it's better in this case, it's better to keep the fiber in. So actually not juicing it and just blending it up together is more beneficial for this case. Would it be because, like, I know fiber is really good to, get the metabolism going and allowing for stools and all that to pass?
Yeah. So, it turns out that we are, It's hard to say. In America, we are very deficient in fiber. Nobody eats enough fiber. And fiber is really important for a lot of reasons. Yes, it helps bulk up your stool so that you can pass it easier and get, and by the way, this low grade dehydration, one of the things it puts you at risk for is colon cancer.
Mm.
So we want to bulk up our stool. We want to get our stool moving. Fiber is really important to prevent colon cancer, as is hydration.
Yeah.
Um, but the fiber also is what feeds our gut bacteria, right? So that prebiotic fibers, we need it for the bacteria in our gut, and for those reasons, and then let alone for the absorption of how well you're almost like a sponge, how well you're holding on to that hydration. I often have patients who say, I drink so much water throughout the day, but I can never quench my thirst. And I was like, try adding a green smoothie a day, just see what happens. And they find that they hold on to the water better, and it changes, and they're not as thirsty. It quenches their thirst better. I mean, you
Mm.
can try that as a solo experiment. You'll see it's way more hydrating in the longer run than just drinking plain water.
Yeah, and that's interesting you say that, because sometimes I feel like I'm also the same, where I'm drinking so much water and I still feel dehydrated and bloated because I've drank so much liquid, and
Yeah.
it's still not giving me enough, I guess, energy to withstand like the pressures of a day.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you say that. So green smoothies are the way to go.
Yeah. The one thing you just touched upon, though, that some people need to be a little careful with. There are people who can't tolerate raw vegetables
Yeah,
because
like
their gut is a
fructose.
mess, right? Well, and maybe for other reasons, and there's many reasons why they can't. And those people may need to work up to so much blended greens and start little by little. Maybe more fluid, more water, and just a little bit of greens, and slowly work up to what your body can tolerate. And that's a major. I mean, a minority of people, but there are
Mhm.
people who can't tolerate it, and they need to be a little bit careful, because they'll drink one green smoothie and get diarrhea, and that kind of thing,
Yeah, you
bloating,
don't want
gas.
that.
No, no,
Yeah.
but
I
it's a good
guess,
clean out.
yeah, absolutely. Great way to cleanse the gut
Yes,
and the
exactly,
liver. That is
exactly.
so funny. Going back to your personal life, what do you do for self-care?
Um, so it's funny, we teach best what we need the most, right?
Mhm.
And so the hydration piece was a huge part of my puzzle of why I didn't feel great. And I have learned that I have to hydrate, and so I have created, so even in my office, I have, and myself included, we take turns making smoothies for the whole staff. So somebody goes in the
Love
back, makes
that.
the smoothie for the day, and then I also make sure that my assistant is making sure I have my hydration if I'm really busy, that kind of thing. So I have things that are set up, especially in my work life, that are helpful to me. The truth is, I think also for me, what for my wellness, this is the thing that really comes to my mind. I have to have a creative outlet in my life,
Mhm.
and this is not to do with health or wellness. This is my brain. I'm so grounded every single day. One-sided conversation with a patient in front of me. It's kind of serious. I try not to make it serious. My office, I try to keep it light, and it's a really happy office. But having some kind of creative outlet, I'm constantly seeking something. I wish I played an instrument. I wish I had a band. That would be ideal, but I don't play any instruments. But it's something. It's always it could be. I once bought everything it took to make soap, and spent like
Wow.
$100 on a soap making, and I bought all the ingredients. I made a few batches of it, and then that was the end of it. I was on to the next thing. But it's finding some kind of creative outlet, and that is truly what keeps my brain young and healthy, and music and this past year, the biggest thing, and living in New York City, like, why would anybody live in New York City if there's no culture? And with the lockdown, it's been really hard for me.
Yeah.
This is New York City is all about the culture. When I cannot wait for Broadway to reopen up, because we need that, um, that art in our lives. It really is as important as medicine
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, of course. And like utilizing both sides of the brain, I feel like it's important to do.
Very, very,
Mm.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, the other thing, what we just did, so this is funny. My partner just bought it's called an Oculus 2 roller coaster. So it's all virtual reality, and we are having a ball with it. That is really fun, and there's dancing, and so that's the kind of person, like, you have to go out and seek, and it's not a crazy expensive at all. It's actually an incredible. I can't stop talking about it because it's really fun.
I missed the first part of the description. So is it like goggles or
Yes, yes. It's a virtual reality device where you have these paddles, you have these goggles, and it's called an Oculus 2. It's about $300, which is not crazy, and there's all kinds of things, and then I mean you can download apps and spend more money on all the apps and that kind of thing. But it's the coolest thing. I can't
That's
even. Yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. It's great. It's fun.
And you said obviously that with a busy schedule, sometimes you need those reminders from your assistant. What other ways do you avoid burnout?
Um, it's what ways do I avoid burnout? Um, I think it's the basics. It's going back to basics, taking care of yourself. It's funny, during early on in lockdown, we renovated our apartment. And so that was a really, really hard time for me. And sometimes you're so in it
Mm.
between, lockdown and work and patients calling you and then renovations on top of that. And I didn't realize, like, how I was making myself sick. It was hard. It was really hard. And me and my partner, we were, at each other's throats, on top of each other, can't leave. Um, and, now looking back, I could have done something better. So I think it's the idea that it's hard. You have to stave it off. You have to be preventative. That's
Mm.
the best thing I can say to you. And I don't always necessarily. Um, it's hard. It's hard work staying on top of your own health and well-being. Um, I now, I never renovated anything before, so I had no idea. There's always all these stories that people talk about, and turns out, yeah, they're true. It's hard. You're gonna, so so I think it will never happen again. Now I know better.
Mm.
Once you know better, you do better.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and just I think staying on top of it is the only thing I can say. Um, Taking time off when you need it, which actually that is something that I even did in that point. I needed to take a break, and take a week off. I had to do it, and I did it, and that's as important to me as as anything.
Yeah, and I think it sometimes it's in hindsight you realize that you were in those predicaments, but, like, in the crux sort of thrust of it all, like, you don't realize how detrimental it is upon your own health because you're just trying to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, and the truth is nothing is as important as your own physical health.
Mm,
There's nothing that is more important. So you have to keep that in mind, that anything can wait.
yeah.
If you need that time, for the most part, anything can wait, or you can. And the other thing, and this is something I always have problems with, ask for
Ask for
help.
help. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
as women, we don't do that. We think that we can take on everything, but you have to ask for help.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And that kind of leads me into my last question about what are your top 3 tips for unearthing well-being?
Oh, you know what? I wrote these down somewhere because I know you'd sent me an email. What did I do with them? All right, so let's think. The first and most obvious is hydration. Learn how to hydrate. Once again, listen up, people. The single most important thing you could do to treat and prevent chronic illness is hydrate properly, and stay on top of it day in and day out. So the second thing that I think is important is finding your joy. I'm opening a new office, a new doctor's office, and I'm decorating it really crazy. It's things that make me
Amazing.
happy. Yeah, it's just different, and that's going to bring me joy when I go into my office. It doesn't have to. Who said a doctor's office has to be so staunchy and
Sterile.
sterile? Yeah, it's fun. It's a really fun environment. So once again, finding your creative environment, your creative outlet, finding joy in your work. My work is not always joyful. It's hard, but making finding things that can get you there. And then the third thing for unearthing wellness is, I think just eating well, cooking, um, finding shopping. I love grocery shopping. It's so much fun. I love farmers markets, like really making that a part of your life, and learning how to cook. That's also creative, by the way.
Hmm.
And I am a foodie. I love to eat. So once again, I try to stuff myself with vegetables, find new ways of making fun vegetables, and then I can have pasta every so often or bread every so often, and finding the joy in cooking and serving and cooking together and eating together and nurturing others with cooking. Those are the things that I think really unearth um, wellness.
That is so beautiful, and I think they're really perfect answers to the question. So thank you so much, and thank you so much for coming on. I know in New York it's almost 9 o'clock there, so I
Yeah.
really appreciate 9 p.m., mind you. So I really appreciate you coming on to talk to me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Anything to get the word out about hydration.
Yeah, of course. And where can we find you and where can we purchase your book
So the book
beforehand?
is sold wherever books are sold. I'm not sure in Australia, but Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble. My website is www.drdanacohen.com, DANACOHEN. Reach out. You can get on my email list and Instagram and all those fun things. So
Amazing. Well,
yeah,
thank you again, Dr. Dana Cohen. It's much
thank you.
appreciated, and I hope you have the best evening.
Thank you. You as well. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful night.
Bye. I hope you had that light bulb moment like so many others before you, listening attentively to Dr. Cohen. She is phenomenal. To ensure Ask Elizabeth and Unearthing Wellbeing continues to grow, please subscribe and rate the podcast. Feel free to also share and tag us on your socials. I hope you have a lovely day, be safe, and be kind. Take care.